Hey nerds, own goal here, bringing you a how-to on playing Wood Elf Kite. Uh, this build is another one of like the top meta contenders. It's good into basically everything in the game. There's certainly things that you need to change in some matchups, but if you just like show up to a tournament and run this in every round, it's not going to do too terribly. Um, the key is these wild or the Lord uh, and um, these skirms are an enormous amount of damage pressure. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I forgot the name of the unit. I'm like a pictures guy. I was like these wildwood, these deepwood scouts with swift shivers apply a lot of pressure. So they stalk. They have very high DPS, and they have pretty good range. So the idea is that you like walk up to them, get some shots off with these, and then back up. And they have to chase and often will expose themselves to getting netted by your big dragon lord. So you net stuff, you focus fire it, you can use your breath and arrows of Kurnus. So you have a lot of SC and cav killing power and a lot of ability to punish them diving. And then on top of that, you've got generally just like an efficient build. Like you're not giving up that much for this level of threat. So otherwise, it's just like kind of your stock kite build. We're playing against Rusto and the Lizardmen. Rusto's one of the better players in the Rat Clan. He's taken this like mass camo skink build. I don't love what he's done here because the skinks are pretty vulnerable to counterfire. They don't have that much range, so they have like missile resist but not a lot of health. And we're gonna just use our branch wraith to get some Melkoths off and poke them down while we zone him with this the archers. So that's kind of like the general idea. You want to control like one point if you can to not get too far behind on tempo, but it's not the most important. You can back up and then push out later. And so an important thing to do when you're playing kite is to assess who's out poking who. So he went pretty deep on the kite game, like he's here to poke. But because wood elves are kind of the king at that, he's getting out poked, which means we don't actually need to do anything. We can sit here shooting, and if this occurs for long enough, he'll lose the game. So we're in a defensive position. We counter summon Cav at the latest time that we can in order to prevent a dive. And in this case, we're bringing it out just because we see that he's going to push with some isolated infantry. And Cav is pretty good at hitting unbraced infantry while it chases skirmishers. So I'll just fast forward because this is a lot more of the same. It should give you a pretty good idea. You want to plan out like where you take your fight and like where your escape lanes are with Kite. And like in previous videos, terrain's pretty important. You get a huge advantage if they're fighting uphill. So like on this map, we scouted it out before and seen, we have a steep slope near the point. So we kind of want to fight like somewhere in here and force him to come up the hill with his ground units. Here we poke the Lord out. So he's got an expensive elite unit. We were trying to get a net. He sees the tactic and backs off. And this is what I was talking about when I was saying like you can kind of look for picks. In that case, like he blocks the pick. So I was going in with my Cav. He dodges it and uses these to put some counter pressure on, so I'm not able to get it. But we're looking. And while this is going on, we're just emptying ammo. The Branch Wraith is worth a quick discussion. It's probably the best caster on the Wood Elf roster, but it requires that you have a melee lord like this. These are two just very powerful spells, Melkoths and Earthblood. You mostly just spam Melkoths on good targets like Camos and Cav. And then late game, you can pop some Earthbloods on the Lord, so you get a bit of a combo there. So here's what we're talking about. We pop a net off on this. We get a little friendly fire on our Lord, plus some hits from the Sentinels. But you can net something expensive and get a few free volleys on it, and that can just be like totally devastating. So he's realized that he's getting out poked. He's decided that it's time to push. He starts pushing in, and we just move up some pieces. We're being a little lackadaisical with our Cav. Like if he were exerting more frontline pressure, we'd want to be placing it here to countercharge. But because he just has like absolutely nothing to press, we're not playing it as actively. And like this one is going and defending the poke. This one is preventing Cav from diving our frontline. If you have the micro, you can use the different War Dancer abilities. So like I'm chasing camos here and he's shooting me. So I pop the missile resist ability, and then later you want to like turn it back off. Generally, they do better with Shadow's Coil, their MD ability. War Dancers are really good right now. They're just like generically one of the better middle tier imps. They do not trade particularly well against a lot of things that shoot them, but in melee, they're fine against most stuff. He's popping off burning heads. We're trying to avoid giving him too good targets. Like, don't line up a bunch of your infantry and cav if you can avoid it. And you can play the Lord pretty aggressively. Like, you want to finish the game with the Lord at like a 5th or a 4th health. Don't throw away health on it, but if you're in like a mid-game situation like this that's pretty close, you can tax their damage resources by being like hyper aggressive with the Lord, because you're just going to heal it, and you want them to go after the Lord instead of your like actual damage dealers. It's more of like a utility and terror piece that also can do okay damage. So that's kind of the gist, get ahead on poke and then use Cav and word answers and stuff to cap the points and win the game. He's very, very far behind now. We've been popping off some heals. We're ahead on the points. We're ahead on the units. You can see here when he tries to dive with this Cav onto our deep woods that they do pretty good damage. Fantastic poke unit. And that's kind of the gist. Now it's just mop up, like summon your Cav, summon your infantry, take all 3 points, and then try not to dive their spawns so that they can get back in the game. Yeah, that's Wood Elf Kite. You can play a lot of other versions of this. You can use Waystalkers. You can use like your basic chaff archers. But it's the same idea. You've got your Net Lord as a centerpiece, good caster, efficient shooting, and some decent cab on backup. Let's take a quick look. So the Lord did phenomenally. Not only did it pay for itself, but it still had health left, and it got some net utility. The Branch Wraith crushed, healthy, got more than its value almost by 2x, and was doing heals. This probably traded up the most on the roster. It probably got like 700 or 800 of heal value. Word Answers died, but that's okay. They ate Burning Heads. Something's got to do that. Deepwood's crushed. So overall, pretty effective. Quick commentary. We've got this dragon here. If they go for like SEs, we want to out SE game them if we can, especially when they dive. They can't take like a Saurian, but this and the Lord can deal with other stuff. Salon did pretty well. Fire's good against Wood Elves. The Sally actually did great. That's cool. It was mostly shooting Cav. Camos didn't do well. A lot of those had 2 summons. So overall, we shot him, we backed up, and we won. Hopefully you can try this out. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. See you later.